What happens when the journeys of customers, technology, and business intersect? Product happens. Welcome to Product Management Show, where we talk about the journeys of customers, the journeys of technology, and the journeys of business, and what happens when they all intersect at the crossroads we call product.
What would you say you do here? You take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers. Yes, that's
I'm working, so why don't you go do whatever it is a product manager does?
When you think about focusing, right? You think, well, focusing is saying yes, no. Focusing is about saying no. Focusing is about saying no. And you've got to say no, no, no. And when you say no, you piss off people.
You just begin. You do the math. You solve one problem. Then you solve the next one. And then the next. And if you solve enough problems, you get to come home.
Welcome, product people, to episode 43 of the Product Management Show. Whether you work in product management or with product management, or maybe you were just curious or confused about product management, then you are in the right place. Here in Canada, we have a humorous radio show on CBC Radio called The Debaters. This show features stand-up comedians doing mock debates on bizarre topics, such as cake versus pie. The goal is to enjoy some laughs. This episode follows that exact same recipe on the topic of prioritization, algorithmic versus consensus. Our guests, Steve Johnson and Rich Mironov, trade humorous jabs while being questioned, corralled, and judged by a referee, Neeha Tummala. Also, special thanks to Saeed Khan for guest hosting this episode. Listeners note, this is a short episode with about 20 minutes of content and will pair nicely with a long dog walk, a short commute, a leisurely soak in the bath, or a warm-up on the stairmaster. Product principle number 41 is borrowed from the great Yogi Berra. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. Enjoy the show.
All right. Are you ready to meet the two debaters who need no introduction? Rich Mironov coaches product executives, product teams, and agile development shops. He also parachutes into software companies as interim fix-it VP of product. Rich has consulted to more than 100 tech companies and is a favorite of the product blogosphere and conference circuit. Welcome, Rich Mironov. Fondly known as the godfather of product management, most people know Steve Johnson from his 15 years at Pragmatic Marketing. Currently, Steve hails from Under 10 Consulting, where his goal is to turn product managers into product leaders. In his spare time, Steve enjoys making music at notexactlysteve.com. Finally, a warm welcome to our human laugh track, our inquisitor extraordinaire and judge for this debate, Neeha Tummala. Welcome, Neeha Tummala, everyone. Steve and Rich, your topic will be of special interest to all product people involved in prioritization, especially product managers and product owners struggling with questions like, what do we do first? What do we do next? And what do we do after that? Your topic, be it resolved that an algorithmic approach is the best way to prioritize features. Steve, you'll be arguing for this, and Rich, you'll be arguing against. In the Wild West olden days of product management, prioritization used to be based on who screamed the loudest and longest and or had the most political weight. Then came more polite attempts to reach consensus about priorities. More recently, algorithmic approaches have arisen, enabling more systematic, data-based prioritization, but the question still remains, what is the best way to prioritize new features? Is it time for us to evolve past screaming in politics and simply calculate priorities based on data inputs? Or is prioritization as much an art as ever and needs a human touch? A Google on the term product management feature prioritization yields 183,000 results. There is the RICE approach, reach, impact, confidence, effort. There's the Kano model, utilizing performance, must be, attraction, and indifference indicators. There's quality function deployment, which balances voice of customer with voice of company. There's buy a feature and speedboat and net present value and IRR and discounted payback and on and on and on. To paraphrase Confucius, the product manager with one prioritization approach always knows what to do. The manager with multiple frameworks is never sure. So what is a poor product manager to do? Here to guide us through this tangled web of options are our debaters Steve Johnson and Rich Mironov. Be it resolved that prioritization is best achieved by algorithm and not by stakeholder consensus. Steve, you're arguing for this position, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Prioritization is great. It's what makes America great, and it's just going to be great.
Make America prioritized again.
That's right. Now, to tell us why Steve's fascination with quanting will only leave the product manager wanting is Rich Mironov. Rich, you have 2 minutes to convince us that stakeholder alignment is superior. Starting now.
Great, thanks. I think we spend a lot of our time as product managers trying to perfect our algorithms and get them down to that second or third or fourth decimal place. But the time I spend with key stakeholders around the company, they almost always have just two questions for me. The first one is, how come I didn't get the 3 things I asked for? And the other is, how do I escalate this decision above you to your boss or whoever runs product management? Over and over again, it feels like the product managers are the nerdy kids in class who want to show off our really great prioritization spreadsheets and algorithms to the execs and the other cool kids at school. And honestly, they're not very interested. They just want to spend this quarter's engineering on cigarettes and candy and the shiny one-off feature that only one big customer just briefly asked for. So, if we don't first line up, especially our executive stakeholders and sponsors, on board with the idea that we're going to have priorities and that they're actually going to have to live with them for more than a week or a month, as Steve says, I think the rest of this doesn't end up paying off very much. If it's just a matter of us wanting to be patted on the head for being smart, instead of wrestling with the realities of conflicting stakeholders and really hard trade-offs, then we may be missing the mark. So I'm almost always trying to put my effort first into the concept of having priorities, because most organizations honestly don't want any, as much as they say, and getting the C-level or the V-level team to back product as we make some good choices, and then to make sure that everybody who's really important got at least something in the release so they don't go back empty-handed and get beaten up by their own teams. So that's why I think I would start first with stakeholder understanding. Of course, we can't give them all the things they want. That's impossible. But if anybody walks away from that table with completely empty hands, I know that in the next executive staff meeting, they're going to just take our roadmap and dump it on the floor.
All right, Rich, thank you very much.
Well done.
Woo-hoo. So debaters, it's now time to see whose argument really adds up and who will be holding the stake at the end of the debate. That's right, it's time for the bare knuckle round. All right, debaters, get ready and fight. Steve, you begin.
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. I apologize. Well, the difficulty, of course, is Americans and software people don't like to prioritize. They don't like, they want to have everything. They just don't want to pay for it. And having an approach that is algorithmic takes the emotion out of it so that we can say, here's what the math tells us. And yet when I do these quick prioritization tools, I almost always add a column for executive priority that forces it to the top of the list. But if everything is an executive priority, then we're still asking for more than can be done. And I think that is the realization that Rich was calling out about needing to get the executives to see that they're asking for more than can be done. Okay. And given that we have a list beyond what can be done, we need to make sure we're working on the most important things. My approach would be to have an algorithm that favors customer requirements over executive brain farts.
All right. Thank you, Steve. And Rich, how do you battle back from that?
Yeah, I think in theory, that's really good. I'm told that in theory and practice are the same, but that in practice, theory and practice are not the same. And the places I stumble over the algorithmic method are, the in practice parts. The first, when we say, here's what the math tells us, smart people in that audience are the first ones to say, well, clearly your algorithm is wrong, of course, because it didn't give me the answer I wanted. So let's first unpack your algorithm, and you've got to walk me through that, because if it were any good, it would give me all the things I wanted. The second thing they do is they start figuring out how to game the system. So, if you've ever watched a business analyst whose boss's boss's boss really wants this project approved, put 2 or 3 extra zeros on the expected revenue for that thing so that it's big enough that it gets to the top of the list. You're seeing a lot of log rolling and a lot of gaming of the system. When we lay that algorithm out and we don't back it up with good sense and good judgment, I think we're inviting people to start inflating their various numbers and getting them to the top of the list. And then the last problem I see over and over is, if the value estimate for a piece of work is plus or minus 30 or 40 or 50%, and the engineering effort estimates 34 plus or minus 30 or 40, 50%, it means that at best we can get 1 digit worth out of that.
All right. Sorry,
I knew where you were going.
I had to ring the bell on that.
That's okay. Time me out. Good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rich and Steve. Now that was a bare knuckle round, everyone. So we're debating prioritization approaches with Rich and Steve, and it's time for the firing line. For this round, Neeha has a list of prioritization questions for our debaters. Debaters, please wait until Neeha has finished reading the question and then buzz in if you have an answer. Okay, before Neeha takes it away, Rich, can you hit your buzzer so we know what you sound like? All right, that's Rich. And Steve? All right. So we have a punch and we have an annoying buzzer. All right, Neeha, take it away, please.
Great. Question number 1. Regarding priorities, which famous martial artist said, it's not a daily increase, but a daily decrease. Hack away at the inessentials.
That was Donald Trump.
Ooh.
He said, we need to focus on the vital few to make America great again.
I was going for Dwight Eisenhower, but maybe I'm too old for this, so I'll pass.
Oh, no. Give us Dwight. Go for Eisenhower. What you got?
The military-industrial complex is what we must fear the most.
Indeed. Or we could go with Spock. The needs of the many
outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
All creative responses. However, the actual answer is Bruce Lee.
Oh.
We were so close.
I did appreciate it. So close. All right, question number 2. This one's a multiple choice. So here goes. New York uses prioritization algorithms built on top of reams of data to rank buildings for fire code inspections, optimizing the choice of buildings to inspect. 70% of inspections now lead to evictions versus 13% before the algorithms. Who benefits the most from this algorithmic prioritization? A, but I didn't even give you the answers.
Oh,
okay,
I was going to guess
go.
very wealthy property owners in New York City.
All right. You know what?
Worth a try. Keep going.
Dunder Mifflin from Scranton, Ohio.
Okay, you know the question was about New York City, right?
I'm still stuck on reams of data or reams of paper.
Okay, let me finish the options and then take another shot at it. Okay, here goes. A, the tenants of unsafe buildings. B, the city through cost savings. C, the inspectors by having better performance. Or D, the data scientists who get well-paying jobs.
I'll take the tenants of unsafe buildings, except for those who can't find another building that will rent to them in New York, because there's very little availability of open units there.
And yes, Steve?
Donald Trump.
I think that was the answer I gave you before, wasn't it?
So the actual answer is all of the above, according to, wait for it, the city of New York.
Ooh, okay.
All
You're
right,
just killing us here, Neeha.
Well, this one's a tough one. Okay, last one. In multi-stakeholder prioritization, what is the difference between unanimity and consensus? And which should the product manager be trying to achieve?
I'm going to answer none of the above because consensus isn't important here. We've got to get to the right answers. What we need to do is get people to believe that they've agreed with us. So there's virtual consensus with mind control here because consensus doesn't work.
Nicely said. I would give that 5 out of 5 response.
Okay.
Not that my points matter, but still, no pressure, Steve.
Well, let me just, I will consent to being unanimous.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like this. Okay, well, the actual answer is that consensus refers to general agreement, whereas unanimity refers to everyone specifically agreeing on the same thing. So consensus allows for individuals to go along with the decision of the group or agreeing to disagree, and product managers should aim for consensus, not unanimity. So there you have it.
Consent.
All right, thank you. Okay, last question, 12 people. Multiple choice. Which famous Iron Lady once said that consensus is the absence of leadership? A, Sheryl Sandberg. B, April Dunford. C, Steve's mom. D, Margaret Thatcher. I think I heard Rich first.
No, that was Steve. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, well, I was going to say, well, first of all, I did a session last month with April Dunford and embarrassed her. So I probably should say she had the, that answer. But I also think my mom would have jumped in and said something like that. Consensus is basically doing what she wants, I think. So I'm going to go with Steve's mom.
Ooh.
I like it.
I'll take the one Steve passed on, who would be Margaret Thatcher, I think.
Margaret Thatcher. And you are correct. The answer is Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of the UK.
Excellent. But of course, my mom would have weighed in too, And
All right.
I agree.
Sorry, Rich. We got to end that round there. Thank you,
Okay.
Neeha. By the way, I loved Steve's answer. He chose pretty much every answer but the right one. So congratulations, Steve.
Oh, I did forget to say something about Sheryl Sandberg, who I understand is a lovely person.
Yeah, I think you were trying to get it out, but it was just taking too long. But anyway, congratulations on that. So you were going for unanimity, and I think Rich was going for the right answer. So that's the firing line, everyone. It's almost time for our audience, Neeha, to pick the winner. But first, it's time for closing arguments. First, to convince us that the calculus of stakeholder consensus is far too subtle for any algorithm, it's Rich Mironov. Rich, you have 1 minute for your closing argument starting now.
great. I've seen dozens and dozens of algorithms, and honestly, I don't believe any of them. They're all good. They're all useful to do what Steve suggests, which is finding the top 20% of stuff we should work on. But they don't seem accurate. They don't drive stakeholders. And more than that, they leave out all the stuff that doesn't deliver revenue. So tech debt and all the other things that we're going to need to do aren't on the same scale. So I just don't see algorithms getting us out of the swamp.
All right. Thank you very much, Rich. That was short and to the point, and now we need to have Steve come back to argue that with the impending singularity, we need to get on board with algorithmic prioritization now. Whether we like it or not, it's Steve Johnson. Steve, you also have 1 minute to wrap up starting now.
Okay. I think that algorithms provide us a lovely tool to argue. Instead of saying, I want this, wah, 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 and having somebody else say, but I want this, wah, 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 it's really helpful to look at them all in context and say, this is what the math tells us. And then we can argue about the math. But ultimately, an algorithm helps our executive team align. There's a wonderful book by a guy named Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage. And he says, it's really important. It really helps if all of us work for the same company. And the algorithms that I use really help executive teams decide what company they want to work for. Are we all on the same team, or are we all out for our own political gain? So I choose algorithms.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. So now it's almost time for Neeha to decide, but I just had one question. It's a rhetorical question, and no need to answer, but I'm just curious if Al Gore would have picked algorithms or stakeholder consensus. I'm not sure.
He did, but some people think he lost the vote, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, that's
Indeed.
Right.
The algorithm said he won.
All right. Okay.
But the Electoral College apparently did not.
All right. So Neeha, it's time as our designated judge and jury. Please let us know who won and who you give the most applause for. So give us your woohoo. Was it Steve Johnson?
Woohoo!
Or was it Rich Mironov?
Woohoo!
Okay. It was really, really, really close, but my woohoo decimal meter clearly says that it was Steve Johnson. Congratulations, Steve.
All right. Good job, Steve.
All right. So big thanks to both of our debaters, Rich and Steve, and our inquisitor and judge, Neeha. Thank you all.
You can find us on the web at www.productmanagementshow.com and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at The PDM Show. That's THEPDMSHOW.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Thank you for listening to The Product Management Show. If you enjoy the show, please give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.